Hey guys, what's up? Thanks for clicking on the video. If you haven't already gathered it from the title, this is a swarm guide. So I'm going to be going over all of the best upgrades you can do for each ridden, as well as which ridden are best to play, and which cleaners are best to play. So to start off with, I'm going to pull up a tier list real quick. Here it is. We have S, A, B, and C, S being the best, C being the worst. So for cleaners, there are two cleaners that are in S tier. They are the best cleaners to play. Every team should have these two cleaners. That is Carly and Mom. So starting with Carly, she can see nearby hazards and mutations. They get like a highlight thing. What we care about with Carly is that she spawns in with the toolkit, and she also gets 50% team use speed. So everybody on the team gets 50% extra use speed. That's really awesome for reviving people, for using medical accessories, anything really, opening boxes. It's really useful. The main reason Carly is in S tier is for the toolkit. The toolkit allows you to get a free card if you open one of the tiny boxes on the map. Moving on to Mom. Mom gives the team 25 temporary health every time a teammate gets incapacitated. So if somebody goes down, boom, you get 25 temporary health. Mom also has a extra support slot, which is nice. The other really awesome thing about Mom is that she gives the team 100% revive speed and 20% slower temp health decay. So if you have these two cleaners on your team, every time somebody goes down, you're going to get a ton of health, and you're going to be able to revive them super quick. Because in case you didn't already know this, use speed also affects revive speed. Moving on to A tier. In A tier, this is kind of where we get into subjective territory. A lot of people like Hang and Charisse, melee players like Holly, but I'll get to that in a sec. But in my A tier list, I have Walker and Doc. So the reason that Walker is here is pretty obvious if you've ever played Walker. He gets an extra 10% damage on himself, so basically you make him be a high damage build, and he can take down mutations really quickly. He also gets to ping mutations, and those mutations do 10% reduced damage. Now, that is not really a good stat on Walker. The 10% reduced damage really doesn't do anything in Swarm, but the ping and the highlight so the whole team can see him, that's really good. And additionally, Walker gives the team 10 health. Each cleaner gets 10 extra health, and that's super awesome. Moving on to Doc. Doc is really awesome in Swarm, but you have to really work on how you're playing with Doc. A lot of the times, especially in competitive games where there's really good teams, it's hard to get utility out of Doc because so much of the time is spent just killing mutations and trying to survive. But in a normal game, Doc is really awesome because she can heal each teammate for 25 health once per level. So for free, you get 25 health for free. That's like a quarter of the starting health, and that's awesome. Doc also gets plus 15% healing efficiency. You stack that with antibiotic ointment. It's really awesome, and she also gives the team 20% trauma resistance, which is cool, but not amazing in Swarm. So what I would really recommend doing with Doc is you start with the following cards at a bare minimum. Antibiotic ointment, group therapy, poultice, and charitable soul. Those cards on Doc can be really good, but it's important to not abandon the DPS aspect of Swarm. You need to be focusing on killing the mutations, or else your team is going to take more damage. Moving into B tier, Charisse is the first pick in B tier with this caveat. Charisse is probably only good in Swarm if you have Doc with her, so the only time I would really ever put Charisse in is if I got rid of Walker, most likely. You could also make the case for getting rid of Carly, keeping Walker, Doc, and Charisse with Mom. But Charisse, the only reason she's good in Swarm is for the team bolstered health. The trauma resistance only affects Charisse herself, and the armor plates are very rare, so that makes her not really that great. But again, the bolstered health gives you an extra 25% extra health. If you pair that with a Doc who's overhealing really well, it can be kind of cool, but really hard to make effective. So she goes in B tier. Hang is another one that could, in my opinion, be better than Charisse. This stuff doesn't matter up here. We don't care about that. This stuff is kind of neat. So when Hang gets hit by a Ridden, there's a chance he'll drop an accessory. Accessories are limited in Swarm, so that can be kind of clutch. So every once in a while, if you get smacked by a tall boy and you drop a frag grenade or a defib or a toolkit, that can be really cool. but it's inconsistent, and that's why Hang's in B tier, because you're relying on chance and the luck of getting hit and dropping something good. You could drop something bad like a Molotov or a Firecracker, but the other reason that Hang is good is the 5% team accessory reuse chance. So 5% might not sound like a lot to you, but that's 1 in 20. So every time you use an item in a game, you have a 1 in 20 chance of using that item 2 times. Next up is Holly. Holly is the preferred character for melee players, although melee is not good in Swarm right now. I'm sorry, melee players, I know it's fun, but there are so many cards that makes melee obsolete right now. Don't play melee unless you are just having fun. In that case, Holly can be good because she can recover 1 health every time she kills a Ridden. It's kind of inconsistent though. We've noticed that like if you throw a pipe bomb and you kill 20 Ridden, you're not actually going to get 20 health from that. I think it probably has to do with the timing of them all dying at the same time. Anyway, Holly not that great, but she can still be useful for health regeneration. Moving into C tier, first up we have Jim. In campaign, Jim can be really awesome when you build him for high DPS. However, in Swarm, if your enemies are any level of competent whatsoever, they're going to be constantly damaging you, and all it takes is a wretch puking on you 1 time for you to lose all your stacks. The other reason I don't like Jim in Swarm is that in order to get any benefit from him, you have to spend time killing commons, and that takes away from the time you're damaging mutations. He's just not good. Don't play him. Hoffman, don't play him either. Sure, the extra ammo and offensive slot can be kind of cool, but the rate at which he actually drops good offensive accessories is very small. Even if you are focusing entirely on killing the commons, it just doesn't happen that often. So don't play Hoffman and Swarm. And Evangelo, I won't even explain that. You can just figure that out for yourself. Okay, moving on to the tier list for the Ridden that you should be playing in Swarm. Overall top best Ridden to play in Swarm is the Shredder. He is super overpowered right now. They need to nerf him so bad. You just pull somebody in, slap them a couple times, and then when you die, you puke all over them, and the puke stacks like 40 times. It insta-kills people. It's just so overpowered, so brutal. You can pull people 40 feet up into the air and make them die instantly from fall damage. Shredder is just so overpowered. Just play Shredder if you want to win. It's like hitting the win button, basically. Next up is Wretch. Wretch is super awesome in Swarm because he generates points faster than any other Ridden. Applying the pus covered is so useful. It helps out all of your other teammates because it slows them down, it does damage over time, and you can even get anti-heals so that when they try to heal themselves, their healing efficiency is dropped so much they barely do any healing. Wretch and Shredder OP, play them every game. Next up is Tallboy. Tallboy can just fly across the map and smack people down. He does a lot of damage. He's super quick and hard to hit sometimes. If you're really good at playing Tallboy, oh man, you can really make it tough for your enemies. Out of all of the Tallboy variants, the Tallboy himself does not have the most health. That goes to the Crusher, followed by the Bruiser. Tallboy does more damage, he has a really quick recovery time, and he has a really fast sprint speed. That's why Tallboy goes into S tier. He's really good at creating space, he's really good at canceling revives. Every scenario you can think of needs a Tallboy. Moving into A tier. So in A tier, first up we have Bruiser. Bruiser is similar to the Tallboy. He's got more health, does less damage, and is a lot slower. So Bruiser can be really good if your enemies are grouped up on top of each other because he has a frenzy attack. It's basically an AoE, so he's just slamming the ground and it does a lot of damage now. It used to not be that good, but since the last update, it does a ton of damage. Try to work with your Shredder. See if the Shredder can pull them in, and then the Bruiser can walk in there and slam Frenzy Attack the ground a bunch. You can wipe the whole enemy team like in no time. Next up in the A tier is the Exploder. This one can be really tricky. I see a lot of people try to play Exploder because he's fun, but what they don't realize is Exploder takes a lot of skill to play. You can't just spawn halfway across the map and then walk out in the open towards your enemies and try to blow up on them. Exploder is really all about timing. It's about patience, and it's about working with your other teammates. So if you're not hitting at least 2 people with each explosion, you're not really getting any value out of this exploder. So just try to practice up on being ninja-like. Overall, it's risky, but you can get some serious damage in if you play exploder well. Next up on my list on A tier is Crusher. This is one that I really have a hard time putting here, but I still feel like it belongs here when you compare it to all the rest. So Crusher is not great in terms of reliability. If you play Crusher at all, you'll notice it's very inconsistent when you're able to grab people. It does like 2 different animations. Also, one is like where he holds them really close to the ground, which is awesome and allows your teammates to hit them. And the other one, he holds them up in the air. But Crusher can be really good at creating space for your teammates because A, he has a ton of health. He is hard to kill. And B, he actually does a lot of damage to the cleaners that he's pinned. So when you compare Crusher to anything else in the game that can pin somebody down like a Hawker or a Stalker, I mean, he's just the better option. He has way more health. Even though he's not nimble, he's actually going to do damage, he's going to distract the enemy team, and he's going to be way more useful overall than a Hawker or a Stalker. Moving into B tier. Top of the list on B tier is the Reeker. So the Reeker can be really tanky, he's pretty fast, and he does a lot of damage. But you have to upgrade the Reeker class a lot before he's even considered good. When you compare the Reeker to the Exploder or the Shredder, for instance, you're going to get a lot more damage a lot faster out of the Exploder. If you have a competent team, they're going to focus this Reeker down and kill him, whereas the Exploder can sneak in and do like 50 damage in no time, and the Shredder can kill a whole team with one pull if he's really good. The Reeker can be good at opening space and distracting if you have like a lot of other high health cap teammates. So if you had like a Bruiser, Crusher, a Reeker, Shredder, that could be pretty interesting. But overall, I don't think Reeker's that great. The only time I would really ever play a Reeker is if you have an enemy team that's out in the open on a large map and you have trouble getting the Shredder or Exploder in there fast enough because the enemy team kills them too quickly. Next up is the Stinger. The Stinger can do a crazy amount of damage when he's leveled up. In round 1, he's completely useless. He can no longer shoot while he's jumping. He has a really, really high skill cap. You have to be super good with Stinger in order for him to be effective. So I would really avoid playing Stinger unless, you know, you're just having fun. Next up on my list is Hawker. And this one's hilarious to me. I see so many people playing Hawker every day. And it just makes me laugh because every time I see a Hawker shoot me and then do nothing, and then pin me again and then do nothing, and my teammates break me out within 5 seconds, I'm going to survive 6 minutes because your Hawker does nothing. All it does is pin me, and my teammates punch me once and get me out of that pin. You're not doing any damage. You're not even distracting us, really. It's just annoying, if anything, but it really adds no value to the game. If you are good with Hawker, you'll know to time it correctly so that you can knock somebody off a ledge into, say, a tall boy down below, or you can try to pin somebody who's going for a revive. There are ways that Hawker can be okay, but it just doesn't happen most of the time. Finally, in the bottom of B tier is the Ripper. Imagine a tall boy who's slower, who has less health, who does less damage, who attacks slow, and is worse in every single way. Well, that's what the Ripper is, basically. The only cool thing about the Ripper is that if you hit him with a ranged attack, it does more damage than if you hit them directly with the circle. So that's the only time Ripper is effective. But in order for you to do that, you have to time out where the enemy is going to be so that by the time that projectile moves over the ground, it actually hits them, which is pretty hard to do. So the Ripper can be good if your enemy is pretty dumb and really bad at moving around or is covered in wretch pus. But otherwise, I would pretty much just avoid him, and honestly, I could probably put him in C tier and feel just about as good with my decision. And last on our list in the C tier is Stalker and Urchin. Stalker is good on one map and exactly one map, and that's Pain Train. And the only reason he's good on Pain Train is to upgrade his utility level one time so that he moves faster, and then you can grab somebody and drag them into the water. That's the only time Stalker can ever be good. I'm actually kind of joking there. He can be good for jumping into a crowd of people because his pounce ability will actually stumble the cleaners around it. But otherwise, he's pretty much useless, and the only way to make him effective is to get close to the cleaners. But then when you're close to the cleaners, he has like 20 HP, so 2 shots from an M1A is going to kill him, and then you're just going to be waiting for 15 seconds. So don't play Stalker. Urchin is absolute doo-doo. I cannot stress this enough. Urchin does no damage, and the only time he is ever good is when people are camping in a room and you can spit in one place. But guess what? The Wretch is better at that. The Exploder is better at that. The Shredder is better at that. The Bruiser is better at that. So basically, what I'm saying is... Okay, so enough of that. That's the tier list. Those are my recommendations. Some of it is probably up for debate, and I'm sure this list will change as time goes on and new updates come out. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. In the next video, I'm going to go over the upgrade paths, so check that out if you want to see that.